Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live from Palm Beach on the Friday leading into the weekend in which we give thanks for those men and women who have served us over several centuries now and kept this country strong and free, and often are not given the respect and the support that they're entitled to. But we have a sponsor for this show that gives you an opportunity to pay them back to some extent. And that's Tunnel to Towers, T2T.org. They take care of the wounded and seriously injured soldiers and also law enforcement people, particularly those who are catastrophically injured. They build smart homes for them. For those who die, they pay the mortgages on the homes or build homes or help them. And for those who are homeless, they are in a massive program now, building facilities all over the country to try to eliminate if you haven't done it. Over and was talking on the other show about the horrible shooting of Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, 28 and 26, about to be married, about to be engaged. Both of whom were killed because they were Jewish. No other reason. They hadn't done anything to this maniac, who's not a maniac. This guy, I have been predicting, and my colleagues who have their heads screwed on straight, not the vast majority of communist influenced and idiotic fools that make up the media. This guy, I'm surprised it didn't happen before. This guy is a perfect creation of the squad. This guy's a perfect creation of people like Pelosi and Schumer, and who all kneeled down to Black Lives Matter, which is a cop-killing organization that encourages the killing of cops. That's not Rudy Giuliani making it up. That's going to any one of their protests where they incessantly will say, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. And it is interpreted like Free Palestine is interpreted as Heil Hitler. It is interpreted as kill cops. So you do enough of that. You do enough of the Elon, what's her name? The one who married her brother? Omar, yeah. Omar. Oh, yeah, Omar Pomar, yeah. And the other one up in Massachusetts, and they're all over the place. The idiots we have in New York, AOC, they engage in either subtle or direct. And I, as I said to Dov Hiken last night, the anti-Semitism is too mild. This is Jewish hatred. This is the oldest form of invidious and homicidal prejudice that's dragged humanity down over and over again through the centuries. And somehow they're still able to take weak, distorted, or evil minds and affect them. Like this guy who's hanging out there waiting for some Jewish people to kill, the way they did in New York when they had the pogrom under David Dinkins and Al Sharpton in New York a couple of years before I was mayor. I remember that. It just reminds me of that. It reminded me of driving through there and hearing them saying they were looking for Jewish people. Look at them, shoot them, or beat them up. Why? Because they're Jewish. Now, Elias Rodriguez. Oh, Rodriguez. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like to mention his name. Yeah, his name is Rodriguez, and he's not what you would. He, what? You can put a picture of ugly Rodriguez. I mean, the guy is ugly as sin. But what's and I think we all saw that video where he's yelling and screaming as he gets arrested about free Palestine, which the Prime Minister of Israel has correctly said is the equivalent now of saying Heil Hitler. Anti-Semitism, as David Bernstein points out, anti-Semitism doesn't always wear a swastika. Sometimes it wears a kippah. These are the two very, very fine young people. Yaron Lashinsky, 28, who is American and Israeli, both, and Sarah Milgram, who I believe is American, but has spent time in Israel and was going back to Israel. And both of them began to work together at the Israeli consulate and went to the American Jewish Committee's Access Young Diplomats reception at around 9 p.m. in Washington. Now, she has spent several summers working with peace-building groups between Palestinians and Israelis. You couldn't make this up. And Lashinsky was about to take her with him on a trip in the next day or two to Israel, where he was going to ask her to marry him. He is a Christian. His mother is a Christian. His father was Jewish. He is described by Ronen Shoval, the dean of the Argamon Institute for Advanced Studies in Jerusalem, where the man was a graduate student as a devout Christian. But he had tied his fate to the people of Israel. He lived in Bet Zayat, a village outside of Jerusalem. And he had met her family. Her family, her father has said, "We're going to miss her terribly. She had an infectious smile. She was happier now than she ever was in her life. She was truly in love with Yaron and vice versa. We spent a lot of time with Yaron and we loved him dearly and wanted to welcome him into our family," Mr. Milgram said. She grew up outside of Kansas City, while Lashinsky was born in Israel to a Jewish father and Christian mother. And they met at the consulate. The conference that they went to, there is an article by heartbroken David Bernstein, who was the founder of the American Jewish Congress and who found this particular program. This is a program for what he would say bridge building and peaceful coexistence. It's to promote understanding and reconciliation among young diplomats so that as they move on in their career, they'll have personal relationships to rely on to get beyond some of the hostility and convince themselves there are human beings on both sides. This is a very, very wise thing to do. And David Bernstein is heartbroken that this resulted in the assassination of these two young people. But this has nothing to do, really, it has nothing to do really with politics per se. This has to do with hating Jewish people and wanting to eliminate them, which has been a problem for 2,000 years. And just as strongly and right behind it is death to America. You almost can't say one without saying the other. And as I said, Mr. Bernstein made the very, very sage comment that anti-Semitism doesn't always wear a swastika. Sometimes it wears a kippah. And the Prime Minister of Israel has told us that now it is quite obvious to him that when people are yelling, free Palestine, they might as well be throwing their arm in the air and saying, Heil Hitler. And I would say that's true. I don't think that's an exaggeration. And we've been hearing free Palestine, drive them from the river to the sea, get the Jews out of Israel. The Jews have stolen the Holy Land. My goodness, I was reading the Book of Psalms last night, and I was reading about how Tobit, and that was the Book of Tobit, and his travail, and how he had to get his son to Jerusalem in order to get. He had become very poor, and he wanted to die, and he was praying to God to die, and then so was Sarah in Jerusalem, and he sent his son Tobiah to go to Jerusalem and to get the money that he had saved. And he talks about the importance of Jerusalem to the Jewish people. So when these half-wit, moron, uneducated Ivy League jackasses tell us that Israel had no claim to this land, there's no group of people that has a better historically recorded claim to Jerusalem and the surrounding area than the Jewish people. From the day of the first Passover until the last one, it ends with "See you in Jerusalem next year." I don't know, is that 1,500 years of yearning for your homeland? And it's been their homeland on and off as they've been taken in and out of slavery. So this is as legitimate a claim as you possibly can have. The Palestinians are created within the last 100 years. There are no Palestinians. There are Syrians, and there are Sumerians, and there are Egyptians. There are no Jordanians either. They're created. They're created by the overlords of the world, the oligarchs of the world, that since the Congress of Vienna in about 1815 have been deciding who people are and where they should live. And I thought that President Trump's speech to the people in the Middle East was brilliant in that the reason the Middle East is now flourishing is they're setting their boundaries and they're setting who they are and what they are. And Winston Churchill isn't doing it. Now, I can't think of anyone more important than Winston Churchill. But that was a very, very bad part of our history that many of our great people participated in, which is carving up countries for people. The last real disaster was the Treaty of Dayton that ended up with carving up Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina and that area that used to be part of Yugoslavia. You look at how they drew that map, it looks like a bunch of crooked Democrats trying to fix a congressional election by redistricting, like the one that was thrown out by the New York Democratic New York Court of Appeals that cost 2 judges their jobs so they could get it redone. I mean, the Democrats don't allow any breach of their hold and dictatorship on New York for purposes of corruption. And if you do, they go reverse it. So here is the only thing I can tell you about this. It'll be prosecuted. And we'll find out, unlike we still haven't found out, what happened to President Trump the both times they attempted to kill him. The FBI is still working on that. We don't know anything about it. We haven't found anything. It's just kind of, these people got up one morning and I'm going to kill Donald Trump. No help. I think we're going to find out about this one. And it's pretty easy already to see who is responsible for this. The people that put all these ideas in his head. Including, do we have a picture of the leadership of the Democrat Party bowing down, kneeling down, showing their respect to the communist, cop-killing, city-burning Black Lives Matter? That's at the core of his hatred. That's at the core of the murderous hatred. He was a very, very dedicated member of Black Lives Matter. I'm sure very much influenced by Schumer and Pelosi and all those people bowing to an organization that is, in fact, virulently anti-Semitic. See them all? Those are the leaders of the Democrat Party engaging in a ceremony of evil. The organization that they are bowing in support of hates America, hates the nuclear family, hates the Jewish people, and is unashamedly Marxist. And there's Nancy D'Alessandro, whose father was the mayor of Crooked Baltimore.
That's her name, right?
What?
You're right. I never put that in her name.
What, D'Alessandro?
That's her real name.
Yeah, Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. Yeah. Would you like me to sometime run down that name for you? And Nancy Pelosi can fool you. She doesn't fool me. You think the crookedness just started with her husband doing the insider trading? Look at this. And look at those things they have around their neck. This
Very American to me.
and this is for the murder of a guy who was a woman beater, a cop beater, who had so much drugs in his system that nobody could possibly kill him but himself, that they used to destroy a good part of America. Burning buildings with the cover of CNN saying, this is a peaceful protest, as the guy saying it got burned to death. And then Soros and Cackling Kamala made sure everybody was let out of jail. And then they tried to make January 6th what they had actually done. Do you remember any fires on January 6th? I don't remember a Black Lives Matter riot without a fire. I do remember reporters from CNN standing in front of it and saying that it was a peaceful, largely peaceful demonstration with a little fire. Yeah, these are the peaceful. You see the peaceful demonstrations? Those are the peaceful demonstrations that this guy attended and was part of. He was going to demonstrations for these exaggerated, hysterical excuses to steal, going back to 2014. And they succeeded in demonizing his view of Jewish people and of his own country, including his father. Seems like he hated his father. His father had been in the military. His father actually killed people in Iraq. Now, most of us, I think, who are decent people realize that this Rodriguez is an animal, right? There he is sitting there just waiting for Jewish people to kill and then yelling out, free, free Palestine. This is like when they used to run into the military barracks. That guy ran into the military and started killing people, yelling Allah Akbar. And Obama couldn't figure out that it was an Islamic terrorist attack because Obama was on the other side, as a very great man told me. So Rodriguez has been part of Black Lives Matter. He's been part of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. He is a gift from the left. This guy is the left. You find me a Proud Boy or what are the other groups are that they tortured that's ever done anything like this.
Right. This is him.
He was a part of Black Lives Matter. He was a part of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. His chant of free, free Palestine was being used at Columbia University that very same day by people who feel the same way he does. And it was being placated by their cowardly president, Claire Shipman, who said the following during her commencement talk. I know many in our community are mourning the absence of our graduate, Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil is a very, very ardent supporter of a group of terrorists that wants to destroy all Jews in America. What the president of an American university is mourning the absence of this guy who has ruined her university with demonstrations frightening the hell out of not just Jewish students, but everybody else, burning parts of her university. She wants them back to burn a few more buildings. I mean, she might as well go work for Senator von Hoopendubel and start bringing people back, start bringing people back from El Salvador because they haven't done enough rapes yet. Khalil is now the left's great free speech martyr. But he's a hard person to miss. His idiot radical group, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, called the October 7 massacres a moral, military, and political victory. Was that when they were raping the little babies? Or cutting the throats of the parents in front of the children? Which are the two? And was it the oddity that they were attacking a group of Jews in that part of Israel, which is probably the only group that supports them and wants peace? Or that this maniac killed two kids who were at a gathering from the American Jewish Congress that tries to bring diplomats together so that they can find peaceful solutions to things. He didn't care who he killed. He just wanted to kill a Jew. That is the quintessential definition of anti-Semitism, isn't it? They blame everything on the Jews. Any Jew, even a symbolic Jew will count. One of the people to graduate Columbia on Wednesday, and this is where the murder comes from, was Mohsen Madawa, who for the last 19 months has led students, and his chant is globalize the Intifada. Now, why would you want to globalize a terrorist? The Intifada are a series of terrorist attacks done over a period of time in order to make a political point. And what they do is they kill innocent people, non-combatants. And he wants to globalize it. He wants an Intifada in America. Why is he walking around the streets? He hasn't done enough in destroying property and pushing people around. And gosh, I looked at the tapes. I could have arrested 3/4 of them. They'd have been in Rikers Island when I was mayor, and it would have stopped. You know how often I talk to my former cops and we say to each other, this could not have possibly happened when I was mayor? We went up to Columbia, and I even fought with the cops.
Oh, I got that.
Boy, were they a bunch of useless. I mean, they're Remember the cop that got the water thrown on him and he put his head down? You can't imagine what my cop said about him. I was somewhat sympathetic to him because I said, the leadership is so bad.
Right.
That's a hard one. It's a hard one. I mean, those guys are under a lot of pressure. But 19 months of chants calling for the annihilation of the Jewish state and the killing of Jewish people had a material impact on the murder of these two young people. And as Douglas Murray very sagely points out, this would not be tolerated with any other group of people in America. I know that. And this is the burden that we carry from the evil part of our history, which somehow has given us this curse. A curse for the Jewish people, of course, mostly, but a curse for us decent people too. I mean, we've tried everything to try to eradicate anti-Semitism. And I would have told you at some point, I can't locate the year, that, boy, not in my city, not in a Jewish city like New York. You know, I was so proud of the fact that after September 11, Bernie Kerik and I set up a task force to prevent violence to any Muslim people. And we subjected it to our world famous ComStat system. And I got reports every day at the special meetings that we set up with Governor Pataki, 3 a day. And every day they would report on the number of incidents. We never had a serious incident. We had some interchanges of one kind or another. We had, as people want to deny, we had Muslims that were celebrating, particularly in New Jersey. All of that's true, by the way. They celebrated all over Gaza. They celebrated all over Bosnia-Herzegovina. I have no idea why we are on the side of those countries sometimes, and they hate us. When 3,000 of us were killed for no reason, they cheered. But New Yorkers didn't. After three and a half weeks, I didn't need the task force anymore. And I made an announcement and a little talk about it, how proud I was of my people in New York. I mean, any other people after that kind of an attack would have struck back illegally and viciously and animalistically, because that is a quality of human nature of certain people. Not all men are angels. Not all men are even decent. But somehow, I don't know, the city where people all have to live together. I used to say, I'll never say it anymore, it takes the prejudice out of you. When you ride on a subway and, you know, the people are black and they're brown and they're Jewish and they're Indian and they're this and they're that, and you get to see there are good ones that help you and bad ones that hurt you, and it doesn't matter. If you really have a strong mind instead of a weak mind that can be manipulated like this guy had, New York is the best place to overcome prejudice. I don't think you can be a New Yorker and be prejudiced and understand what it means to be a New Yorker. We just come from too many places. And we have too many examples of bad people from those places. Those idiot young people, or whatever they are, they look like they're all different ages, have no idea, I hope, that they're supporting a 50-year terrorist group. And that's an ignorant church out there. It's an ignorant, ill-educated, uninformed church.
If you were still running this town, what would you be doing right now to help?
Down to a science, under 3 different police commissions, not just one.
I muted it, but seriously.
The Jewish kids were afraid to go to class.
Play it again.
Or whatever they are, they look like they're all different ages. Have no idea, I hope, that they're supporting a 50-year terrorist group. And that's an ignorant church out there. It's an ignorant, ill-educated, uninformed church.
If you were still running this town, what would you be doing right now to help correct the situation for what's going on all around?
Well, I would tell Adams that he doesn't have to get the permission of the president of Colombia to go in there and straighten out the homelessness, the people with tents. It's part of New York City. And maybe he should learn the law. I mean, I wouldn't allow this to go on in my city. For them to have tents in the middle of a campus, they have tents going on. The president of this university has closed down the school, and she's still charging tuition?
Behind us, so we gotta get. You can pull over. You can pull over. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. You can pull over.
How do you think the mayor's doing right now with all this?
The mayor? The mayor's in Miami.
What's up? What's up?
You are a terrorist. You are a terrorist, Giuliani. The blood is on your hands.
I don't know. Maybe they thought I was going to get beaten up. They're going to beat me up. These people are a bunch of silly. They're all white, by the way. They're all a bunch of privileged white little assholes. I'm telling you, I can get my 60-year-old cops and they could handle those guys. 70-year-old cops can handle those guys. This was not, I mean, when I've seen some very, very difficult crowds to deal with. These are pussies. Even the demonstrations they had with George Floyd coming over the Brooklyn Bridge, I'm looking at it, and it looks like, everybody's out for a Sunday walk. Half of them don't even know what they're there for, like the ones you interviewed.
Right.
Some of these people didn't even know why they were there. They were just there to complain about America and complain about Jewish people. Because what they are at heart are anti-Semites and anti-American. Then the rest falls in. Because they were trained to be like that in those universities where Trump is cutting off their money. On that, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani back on America's Mayor Live. I should, tell you, you know this, that all of the pro-Gaza, pro-Palestine, anti-Israel groups have commended the murder of these two innocent young people. I mean, that shows you that these are animalistic murderers. This murder has nothing to do with Gaza. Murdering these people is not going to bring more supplies to the people of Gaza. It's not going to stop Bibi from destroying Hamas. These people were on their side. They just lost 2 people that were kind of on their side. This was a demonstration of the hatred that has been created by the left wing, and only by the left wing, by the Democrats, by the communists. This is exactly why they project and try to talk about, right-wing extremism. When's the last time some right-wing group burned a building down in America? I don't know. They've burned down so many, I can't count them. Of course, there are right-wing maniacs, but it's minor in comparison to this. This is all over the world. So the pro-Hamas Gaza Now media group, which is quoted often in the communist newspapers in America, which includes the Times, etc., celebrated Elias Rodriguez as an ally against Zionism. And he welcomed the violent attack that killed soon-to-be engaged Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. In a moment of courage, Rodriguez decided to make his voice heard and boldly confront the killers. What killers? These kids are not killers.
Boldly? What?
That
wasn't bold.
They didn't
that
have
was
a gun.
That was cowardly.
He ambushed them. 2 kids, unarmed, who are not soldiers. They are not killers. He opened fire, killing an Israeli employee, and stood defiantly handcuffed to raise the banner of justice in the face of injustice, the group added. So shouldn't this group be put on a boat and sent to Gaza?
It's the nicest thing you could do to him.
Or South Sudan. We're sending them all now to South Sudan. And then the judge in Boston could try to bring him back.
Right.
So he could join them with the 8 murderers, rapists, and killers so they can murder, rape, kill, and have demonstrations in Boston. The Palestinian Mujahideen movement celebrated the attack. Now, this is the group, the military wing, had held slain hostages Shiri Bibas and the 2 little babies, Ariel and Kiefer. Well, they're very happy about this also, and saying this is evidence of the growing global anger against Israel. Killing 2 innocent kids shows Palestine Mujahideen movement that you are exactly the animals that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have located and described. The militia part described them as a heroic attack. What is heroic about ambushing 2 civilian employees? In Syria, the group that's opposing the Syrian government, the one that Trump met with, is very excited about this attack and sees it as revenge for the people of Gaza. Abu Yahya al-Shami called on Muslims to follow their example. Kill more Jews. The one who got caught giving us her true feelings is Ilhan Omar, who was asked her feelings and her thoughts about it. Very simple to say, even if you're a damn liar, well, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family. I don't want to say any more about it right now. She says, I'm going to go for now, and walked away, unable to say what she really thought, which is the same thing that these other people thought. And then she put out a statement later as she got castigated. I'm appalled by the deadly shooting at the Capitol Jewish Museum.
Here's a video the mayor just referenced.
The shooting that happened in D.C. last night.
I'm gonna go for now.
I'm going to go for now, Mark. Couldn't even say.
No more?
Anybody safe?
Can I get your reaction to the shooting that happened in D.C. last night?
I'm gonna go for now.
Now.
I'm going to go for now, Mark. Couldn't even say.
He's still married to her brother.
Like, I guess you're allowed to do that in the state of Minnesota, or what? I'll have to ask Governor Tampon.
I mean, a 12-year-old can chop his penis off. I don't know why you can't marry your brother without the permission of his
that's right,
parents.
yeah.
I mean, now there's a Chinese communist agent, if there ever was one, that nobody wants to face up to.
Right.
Elias Rodriguez comes from Chicago. Imagine in 2 weeks you have the Pope coming from Chicago and you have a cold-blooded,
Not Jew killer.
Jewish-hating, American-hating murderer. Wow. Life is strange, isn't it?
It really is. And you had the Iranian-loving president, Barack Obama, also from Chicago.
The head of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, which is a group that I was very close to when I was the mayor, Mark Traeger, says this is a byproduct of tic-tac education and disinformation. The state of Israel is now fighting a war on 7 fronts. Both of these people were fierce advocates for peace. And this guy has been involved with many Black Lives Matter protests, all of which are violent. He did say when he was cuffed, I did this for Gaza, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, there's only one solution, intifada revolution. And he was a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And he's been demonstrated to have been at many protests going back to the 2014 Chicago police shooting of Laquan McDonald. And many of the protests opposing the war in Gaza. Well, Harvard can no longer take foreign students. I've seen 2 different estimates. 30% of Harvard's class is foreign, and 42%. If it's either, why are we giving them money to do this? I mean, and of course, they have a very, very close relationship with the Chinese Communist government. And there's a report out today about how the Chinese use Harvard, and they coordinate with the university. You think they're teaching the glories of the American Constitution? They're teaching the same stuff Tampon Tim used to teach, the 30 times he went to China paid by the Chinese, Red Chinese. They're teaching the glories of communism and how wonderful Xi Jinping is. So now the administration has canceled $2.2 million in research grants, $550 million in other grants. And the Department of Homeland Security cited the crime rates on the Cambridge, Massachusetts schools campus that jumped 59% between 2022 and 2023, the year when the Hamas terrorists invaded Israel and killed 1,200 people. So I know that there are a lot of problems with judges. There's we know the Wisconsin judge that the lovely and very sedate ladylike Judge Hannah Dugan, who thinks that a judge can aid and abet the escape of a person wanted for a federal process and for deportation, and that's not a crime. She's going to find out that it is. Not only that, it's on tape. And her stunning good looks are not going to help her, I don't think. So shall we?
Walks towards Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan's courtroom. Along the way, he passes plainclothes federal agents who are sitting on a bench. They're there to detain him. After Flores Ruiz walks by, the agents turn to each other and appear to confirm his identity amongst themselves. But a few moments later, Judge Dugan and another judge approach the agents sitting on the bench. A criminal complaint against Dugan later said she was alerted to their presence by a court official. That complaint says during this interaction, Dugan and the agents disagreed over the type of warrant they had to arrest Flores Ruiz. According to the complaint, Dugan ordered the agents to go to the chief judge's office. Video shows her pointing them through a double door. She then turns back to speak with other agents further down the hall and orders them through the doors as well. Shortly after that, with the agents gone from the hallway, Eduardo Flores Ruiz and his attorney exit into the hallway through a different door. As they walk down the hall toward the elevators, they pass another plainclothes federal agent. Neither they nor Judge Dugan seem to have noticed at the time. That agent motions to another to follow Flores Ruiz. Security video shows Flores Ruiz exiting through a basement exit. Upstairs on the 6th floor, the other agents have left the chief judge's office and worked their way downstairs. Flores Ruiz left the building onto 9th Street. Videos of the street shows the agents catching up to him.
And then
Yeah, you see them running, right?
Yep, that's the agent's fault.
Luckily, nobody took a gun out and put a bullet in his head.
Right.
Because they'd be, convicted of murder and executed. And she's been indicted. I mean, I don't know what happens in Milwaukee County, which is very, very left, with a jury, if it's like DC or New York or Chicago. But I mean, that's pretty much it. Now we have just to not make you think it's just Chicago or Milwaukee, or there was a case in New York involving a criminal named John L. Beckham, 44 years old. He has 13 prior arrests for groping two girls, 17 and 14, as well as a 55-year-old woman, masturbating in front of another woman during a May 14th spree that spanned 2.5 hours, going across Park Slope, abusing women. On Friday, he was granted supervised release by criminal court judge Philip Tisney, who has just been appointed, despite Assistant District Attorney Daniel Berkowitz's request for $75,000 cash bail or $150,000 bond. The people have asked for bail, and it is a very close case for me because I take these allegations very seriously, Tisney said. These are very serious allegations. You're facing serious time. You do have a criminal history. You had 13 busts for perversion. But I'm persuaded by the fact that you haven't missed a court date. The source that for the Post here says it appears that this judge tends to release individuals with mental health issues. That's not helping them, and it's endangering the people. Tisney is one of the Manhattan prosecutors assigned to the hush money case of Donald Trump. He's been on the bench since January. Somebody's got to ask Mayor Adams, why the hell did you appoint him? Mayor Adams makes the appointments to the criminal court. I used to make the appointments to the criminal court. Now, this never happened to me. I always lived in fear of it. Every time there was a stupid decision by a judge, the first thing I checked to see who appointed him was always a Democrat. If I were the mayor now, everybody in New York would know who this guy is. And they'd be demanding that he be removed from office because he is not capable of keeping the people of the city safe. Of course, working for Bragg would just indicate that, wouldn't it? And being involved in setting up the president of the United States would indicate that. Maybe he should go to jail for that. Maybe he should go to jail for framing the president.
Right.
JFK Jr. has put out I don't know if it's a partial report or a complete report on the various things that have to be done to make our children healthy. 70% of Americans' children, well, about 40% have a chronic illness, and about 70% have a problem or an issue. And so he puts together obesity, autism, cancer, mental health issues, and allergies. And a lot of it has to do with processed foods, and the fact that we in America use processed foods much more than they do in other countries, even poorer countries, where they use fresh food. And it isn't all processed foods, which makes it complex, but it depends on the level of processing and what is used. And hazardous substances that processed foods will affect adults as well as children. But of course, children are more delicate, so it can be a lot something that's a processed food that isn't very heavily processed might not affect you as a big, strong adult, but it will affect a kid. The same thing is true with hazardous substances like heavy metal pesticides, microplastics, cleaning products, different kinds of cosmetics, none of which has anybody looking at these things to see what are the counters effects of this, because they're all interested in just making money. And the attempts to do this are beaten down by the crooked lobbyists on K Street that own a lot of the Democrat Party and some of the Republican Party. So this study puts an emphasis on these things and makes recommendations, including about mobile phones and how they should be used, laptop computers, and then the fact that children are very often on too many medications. And here's what I suggest, and I've dealt with this for elderly people, including in-laws and friends, and have one doctor that oversees your elderly father, mother, whatever, friend, or the child, so that one doctor knows all the medications that they're getting. I remember a particular case where this man seemed to be submitting to dementia. But on the other hand, he'd be very... So we took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, bring all the medications with you. Don't just take the bottles, put them all in a bag and bring them to me. This happened with my mother too, come to think of it, with a gerontologist. Now I had recommended doing this because it happened with my mother. So they put all the medicines out and he goes through them. He eliminated about a third of them, if not more. Some of them positively harmful and others counterproductive given the other medicines that you would take. But they came from 5 different doctors: heart, arthritis, you name it, right? This is what's going on now because, frankly, a lot of the prescribing and a lot of the treatment is to make money. Because the system is so inefficient and ineffective. So, Kentucky, Somerset, Kentucky, where 13 people died due to a tornado, and the whole area around London, Kentucky, where there were massive tornadoes. It's hard to know exactly how many people were killed, at least 33. And these people feel that they've been not given the attention that they usually get. So I saw I guess they don't call it tweet anymore, a post on X from a gentleman named Dustin Mills. And Dustin asked that we repost this news to our fellow Americans, which I'm happy to do, which I did. and also to mention it on my show. And if you contact London, Kentucky Disaster Relief, you can make donations, or you can also contact Dustin Mills. Dustin Mills 24 is the at Dustin Mills 24 is the X signature.
Yeah.
And you can find out what their needs are. But this was a terrible tornado, and it affected not just Kentucky, it affected North Carolina as well. So if you can help, please do. And we'll put out some more tweets over the weekend as we get more information, and see if we can, help you help them. These are things where Americans stick together, but they need to know. And this should have gotten a lot more attention than it did. So let's hope. We did recommend the other day, as a recommendation from Daniel McCarthy, that China be charged for COVID. And I really believe that should be done. I really believe there should be a legal action taken against China for killing so many people with COVID. It would give us a chance to prove the facts that were suppressed, which is that China knew about it, that China sent people deliberately around the world, that it closed down China, but didn't allow people to travel from Wuhan or whatever, but they sent them to Italy and sent them to England and sent them to Norway and sent them to Japan and sent them to America. Trump actually at first thought they were handling it right until he found out about this. And then all of a sudden, abruptly, at a very early stage and before anyone else, it was either the last day of January or the first day of February of 2020, he cut down all incoming Chinese. And he got destroyed by the left-wing group that I don't know that we all appreciated are really functionaries of the Red Chinese, people like Pelosi and Biden. They called him a xenophobe, a racist. Meanwhile, Pelosi, several days before, told people not to go to Chinatown in San Francisco.
Right. I remember.
These people are such incredible liars. How do people stick with them?
Right.
How can you belong to the Democrat Party? Don't be a Republican if you don't want to. Be a libertarian or be independent and then form a new party. But the party has the most evil history of any American political party. There's nothing in the Republican Party or any other parties in America, maybe the Communist Party, that would reach the level of slavery. Well, the champion of slavery was the Democrat Party. They went into a civil war over it. The champion of segregation was the Democrat Party. And Jim Crow. Why blacks are Democrats, I have no idea. Because they've been snowed. And people that supposedly give them all the help, steal the help for themselves, become very rich and then retire as congressmen. It's a little too many that retire worth 20 million and 30 million and 40 million, never did a day's work in their life. Or the wives become very wealthy. And somehow the social safety net money never gets to the community. Otherwise, the communities would be improved. I mean, I know that firsthand because I saw that with Harlem. Until I got there, nobody did a damn thing. None of that money ever reached Harlem. It was a disaster zone. I changed it completely. You can go look at the property values. I cut it out. I didn't do business with those congressmen. Never even met with them. I was afraid they'd take my wallet. I didn't have much money then. Then I had a lot of money. Then the Democrats came after me again. They took my wallet in a different way. You can see how much it bothers me, right? I'm proud of it, actually. There's some very, very good advice from Isaac Shore that I missed a couple of days ago, and then I was rereading it, and I thought, at first I was going to disagree with him because he's saying that the relationship with the courts that the Trump administration has is not right. It isn't correct. But it was a much more nuanced and balanced piece than that. And it's a good piece of advice that I think the administration should take somewhat seriously. And he starts it off by pointing out that over the last 4 years, the courts have been battered by the Democrats, right? With threats that if they don't rule their way, they're going to be 15 people on the court. And there was a fear that some of the justices would have a fear that if they didn't rule the way the Democrats wanted them to rule, there would be a destruction of the court by putting 15 people on a rotating basis on the court, that John Roberts would be affected by this, that it would prevent the overturning of Roe against Wade. Someone like Chuck Schumer literally asked for violence against Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, and he got it. A guy shows up just a short while later, he showed up at Kavanaugh's home, and after his arrest, he indicated that he was plotting additional attacks on conservative justices to let President Joe Biden replace them with liberals, and was affected by Schumer's call for violent action. This is all during the time where they're trying to frame me and trying to frame Trump for causing January 6th violence, which of course my case was dismissed, and I think his eventually was too. We had nothing to do with it. I never said rain down hell on anybody. Schumer did. So the court up until the Trump administration has been under severe attack by the left, with the hope of intimidating them, including intimidation of these demonstrations in front of their homes, which by the way are illegal, and because the various aspects of the criminal justice system are controlled by the Democrat Party as if they're the Gestapo, nothing was done about it. Now, the court has made several rulings concerning the Trump administration, some of which I agree with, some of which I disagree with. And I've also, myself, am a little guilty of this, I must add, getting a little overly emotional about some of the decisions. But the point that Isaac Shore makes is we better not become them, or we're not going to have a court system. You can disagree with court decisions, but because the court looks at it differently than you, doesn't mean they're dishonest or paid off. Or you got to go a little deeper than that and see how close is the question. Is there an intellectually honest room for that position? So it is quite popular now among the right wing to really bash Justice Barrett, and also to bash, to some extent, Justice Roberts. At the same time, they've issued some very, very heroic rulings. I mean, the most important ruling of the last 5 years has been Roe against Wade, and they both were very, very strongly supportive of that, knowing that they were in jeopardy doing it. So if they're going to pull their punches, that had been the one they pulled their punches. Maybe they pull their punches because they think that that's what they should do. There is a school of judicial thinking that the court should be restrained, that the courts should only declare something unconstitutional when they absolutely have to reach that question. They should do everything to avoid it because it's too jarring. The issue of these nationwide injunctions, which I do think is going to come out in the administration's favor, is not that easy. Let's take President Trump out of it and let's put President Biden back. And suppose President Biden ordered that all people who criticize the Attorney General were engaged in interfering in the administration of justice, and we're all going to be arrested, registered, and put in a national registry. And we went to court. We would go to court to get an injunction, right? and we'd only be able to go to a district court. So, I'm in Florida. I would go to the Southern District of Florida. That's going on all over the country. Now, by the time you're going to get it to the Supreme Court, the damage could already be done. Everybody could be registered. It takes 4 or 5 months. We got to go to the district judge. Then we got to go to the Court of Appeals. Then we got to go to the Supreme Court. And even if we ask for emergencies, we're talking 2-3 months. Meanwhile, people are getting rounded up all over the country. So the district judge has the inclination to do a nationwide injunction, but he can't. He doesn't have the authority to do it. And no matter what the circumstances are, you can't make the law change to fit the circumstances. And I do think the Supreme Court is going to find that the nationwide injunctions will beyond the power of the district court. They can only affect the Southern District of New York or the Third Circuit or whatever. But I think they're going to recommend a substitute process for emergency considerations of nationwide injunctions. They can go to Congress and recommend legislation to set up a special court to do that. Maybe one circuit justice and 2 district judges. They could have the Supreme Court hear emergency applications. They're not going to like that because it's going to require them to do a lot of work. And I'm not saying this in a deprecating way, because their work, these are short, quick decisions that have to be made. And we need them to be spending their time to really think. I'm serious. Because these are very important questions, and they're not easy. This question of birthright citizenship is not easy. It's a difficult legal question. The question of whether the pardon authority is properly invoked with a blanket pardon for offenses that are not even suggested is a very, very good question. Not based on the practices, although there have only been 2 or 3 pardons in the long history of pardons that were were blanket pardons. All of the others have been specific. So that power has been invoked very, very rarely, possibly only by Nixon and Biden. And the reason that's a very good question is there has been much interpretation of the pardon power. And the history of it is supposedly difficult to find. I didn't find it hard finding the history of it. It's pretty clear that after debating various forms of the pardon power, the founding fathers, Madison et al., concluded that they were going to not define pardon, but they were going to incorporate the pardon power of the king for the president. It would have the extent of the king's power, which was unlimited, except it clearly didn't cover crimes you didn't know about. So that would, in essence, invalidate blanket pardons. And that seems to be the intent of including the word pardon in the Constitution. That's going to be a tough question. What I just said, I believe is very clear. You may not. It might be considered judicial engineering to kind of sort of invent that connection now, although it seems so obvious that it was always there and never recognized. I mean, then on that basis, you would not have overturned separate but equal. If it's wrong from the beginning and you didn't notice it, it's still wrong. What I'm trying to point out to you is even where people's ideology is not in the way, these are very, very difficult questions. And I would say of the 6 justices that the ones that he put on, and of course the greatest 2, Alito and Thomas. I don't know if I've ever disagreed with Alito and Thomas, but I've disagreed with some of the appointees of President Trump and John Roberts a few times, and I know John. But I've never thought that a decision was done for any other reason than it was the best they could do. In a situation where I'm sure if I were on that court or any other court, I'd make mistakes. It's different. I'm sorry. And I know you'll think this is biased, but then the liberal judges who make it up as they go along. Some of them don't know the law at all. And the ones who do are even worse because they distort it. And they know they're doing it. But some of them don't. I'm not going to mention names, but I don't know. You would have to say that if you can't define a woman, it might be some limit to your intellectual capacity, huh? And therefore, you're not going to be able to analyze this with the depth that, let's say, a John Roberts can, because you don't have the intellect to do it. So you're going to go on emotion. And you're going to go on the emotion that puts you there. But that is not true of these 6 justices. And Isaac finishes his article this way. Over the last 30 years, the GOP has helped shape the court into a bulwark against extra-constitutional action from power-hungry progressives. It would be a massive mistake to join with Democrats in undermining America's trust in the judiciary now, particularly on the basis of short-sighted misinterpretations that look like the mirror image of the left's tired, shameful campaign to blow it up. Don't know that I'd go as far as that, but I would say you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. We need the court. We're not going to always agree with it. I spent a good deal of my life in court, some of the most satisfying parts of my life. I do believe that the courts are in terrible trouble, but not for this reason. These 6 justices, I believe, and I'm open to changing my mind if I see other things, I believe that they're doing the best they can. And that where there's disagreement, even disagreement, I feel very strongly about, there's a logical, intellectual basis for it. I would have to have a very different analysis of the 3 liberal justices where they would be different. Some get closer to intellectually honest decision-making, and some are just completely off the wall. So I also think, I originally thought this article would be about this, which I also agree with. I'm a lawyer, right? Or I was before they took it away from me, which breaks my heart because I love being a lawyer. You can't constantly be attacking a court and not realize they're human. I'd have an exception to that. If the judge is completely gone, like he's a complete corrupt scoundrel, then it doesn't matter. Because you're never gonna satisfy him, and you might as well just stand up for what you believe is right. And that is true, unfortunately, of more than a few judges right now who are acting like crooked partisan Democrats, which of course has been the way most judges in New York have been for 150, 160 years. So I'm not so surprised by it. But that's not all the judges. And that's not what we want the court to be. That's not the ideal of the court. And we have to be willing to be open-minded if we want the court to be fair and impartial, because they're not always going to agree with us. And we have to be smart enough and disciplined enough to know when that disagreement is a valid disagreement between people of goodwill who look at things differently, or where it's something much more perverse than that, seeking to undermine our rule of law, because that is going on. And if you don't make the distinction, you're never gonna fix it. And I think Isaac could have gone a little further with that analysis, because I think that's really the core of it. But I commend him on the article. It's very, very well thought out and very well balanced. This is a crisis. Our courts, it's not going to be solved by overreacting the way the Democrats have. It's going to be solved by people who are willing to say, we're not going to do that. And so far we haven't. There's no indication to me that we're engaging in just a willy-nilly prosecution of our enemies. The cases that have been brought are all absolutely necessary. When Letitia James says that this is a prosecution that's vindictive, my God, she was the Attorney General of New York, and she falsified that she was a resident of Virginia. I mean, you'd have to be corrupt to overcome that case. No one's making up facts like they did with Trump, or not telling him what he's charged with, like they did in Bragg's case. Nobody is prosecuting her like they prosecuted me for being a lawyer and making statements on behalf of my client and then attacking me if you believe they're untrue. Of course, your adversary thinks your statements are always untrue. Every lawyer would go to jail for that. And for that, they raid my house, take apart my law practice, and try to destroy me. That's different than we disagree on a decision. And we have got to be disciplined enough and smart enough to not take the bait. We do not have to become like them. If we do, it becomes law of the jungle. And we're better than that. And we can be. And thank you, Isaac, for reminding us of it. I don't know you, but thank you. But you know, we had quite a thing with South Africa this week. So we're going to spend a lot more time looking at South Africa. And as I do, there's another problem equally as disturbing as the large number of murders, and particularly the focus on white farmers, which, by the way, goes back so far, I trace it back to about 2017. And it's all over the Daily Mail newspaper. Not every newspaper, but there's a reason for that. I mean, that was true even with Mandela. No one would point out how close he was to Castro or how close he was to Red China. That could be very dangerous to us. But, you know, he was a hero. So his communist leanings and affiliations were never really examined. And what he left behind is an awful government and an awfully corrupt political party. That's, by the way, it is perfectly fair to say that more blacks get killed in South Africa than whites by a lot. Well, first of all, only 7% of the population is white. If you kill too many more, then there won't be any, which is what genocide is all about. Most of the murder in South Africa by a percentage even larger, obviously, than America, where it's 70% in America, is black on black. I mean, the blacks are destroying each other. All over Africa, most of the killing is black on black. But this is a very discrete area that's a combination of white, but also specific objective, which is to take those farms away, where legislation is also being proposed that appears to be extremely dictatorial and authoritarian, which is the government can just say, I'm taking your land. We got it. We're taking it. So if they can't kill you, they just take it from you. There's certainly a lot of evidence to make an investigation of that, open-minded investigation. Without the tyranny that we have, that you can't investigate things if it says there's possibility of racism against whites, is necessary. Because it's the same corrupt government that's allowing all of the murders of blacks too. So we've got to take a good, strong, clear-eyed view of South Africa. And its history of apartheid is terrible, it's awful and disgraceful. But that doesn't mean it can now try to destroy the world. or it can participate with China in trying to subjugate us all, or go ahead and kill people because it wants its land. Two wrongs don't make a right. Two atrocities don't make the second atrocity justified. So, congratulations, President Trump. I don't think there are too many politicians in this world right now that would have had the courage to bring this up and to take up the cause of these people that seem to be forgotten about and who are getting killed with people walking in the middle of the night into their houses and blowing their brains out. Is it enough to rule it or to make it what you would consider a genocide or not? It certainly seems to be very frequent. It seems to have a specific purpose. I would say it would probably be better defined if it is a genocide as not genocide of white people, but genocide or elimination of white farmers. And it could be, and it seems that way now. That's all I've seen. But I've also seen some references to black farmers being eliminated because they wanted their property. So somebody should take a look at how much of that was going on as well. Because I don't think that the government cares very well. No, I think they do care where they get it from, because they want it under their political tent. Now, not all blacks are under their political tent. Some blacks are conservative, right wing, and some blacks are more revolutionary, radical, and homicidal. The EFF. So, but if nothing else, the fact that he's brought the world's attention to this and cracked it through the censorship of the Times and NBC and is brilliant. It's the only way he could do it. And it shows what intelligent people can do if they put their mind to it to overcome these deprivations of rights. Now, there's also a whole issue with South Africa, where China is eating their lunch. So there was an article, and this article goes back a couple months in the Epoch Times and I read it back then, and I reported on it very, very briefly back then, but I never connected all the things together. But it is a great example of the basic, almost criminal trade practices of China. Let me simplify it for you. China got involved with South Africa and a lot of Africa, and they're doing a lot of work in Africa, and they're trying to grab the central part of Africa where they can train military, whatever. But with South Africa, they got involved in economic development, and then they'd make what appeared to be like they're going to help them develop their steel industry. So they help them develop their steel industry, right? At the same time, they're developing their own steel industry. And at some point, they decide they want to crash. They're not making enough money, and they want to crash the South African steel industry. So they sell their steel for way below market to South Africa. And now nobody that wants to buy steel in South Africa wants to buy South African steel because they can get Chinese steel for half the price, which is not a real price. It's a price that's been subsidized by the government, which is called dumping. And it's an illegal trade practice. It's one that we and Europe complains about with China all the time. But here it has an even more nefarious purpose. So the thing I would equate this to is the mafia in 1901 walks into a drugstore and says, "Hey, Giuseppe, I want you to give me 50% of your business. I want to be a partner." "Oh, well, we give me any money?" No. I want you to give me 50% of your business. Well, you make $1,000 a month. I want $500 a month. Well, I can't do that. Well, if you can't do that, you're not going to have a store, or you're not going to have your legs, or you have a very pretty daughter. And this is what the mafia used to do to mostly the Italian immigrants and then anyone else they could. And that's how they started. That's a typical beginning of low-down organized crime monsters that do that. And that's what China does on a nation scale. It makes you dependent on them, or it might do what loan sharks. I was going to say Shylocks, which is a bad term because it uses the Jewish character in Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice, as the description of a loan shark. So it's a terrible word to use, and I didn't mean to. So the loan shark will work with the gambler, and you're gambling on the Knicks, right? Which we're going to watch in a few minutes, and you lose. You want to gamble again, and nobody's going to loan you the money because you've been losing for a while. So now you go to the loan shark. And the loan shark says, okay, you know, they're going to be at a 30% interest rate. They're going to be at a 40% interest rate or a 50% interest rate. Or I tell you what, you can't afford that. Why don't you sign over, if you can't pay it back, as security, half your business, but we'll never take your business. And then one day, one of the Gambino family walks in and says, we now own half of your garment business. And this particularly happens in the garment section because the garment section surrounds Madison Square Garden. This is a whole thing that I broke up. So I'm telling you from fact what happened. And that's how they got control of the garment industry. And the Gambino family and the sons and whatever were the biggest operators in the garment industry. And now, theoretically, legitimately own some of these places. But this is the way they got them. The way China is taking away South Africa. So it's going to be a beautiful weekend where we get to celebrate and to thank, celebrate in that sense, in a solemn sense, the people who keep us safe. And where we continue to reflect on the loss of these two wonderful young people. And why it happened, and how there were many terrible crimes that happened, you know, during the course of a year or a week or whatever. And there are some that didn't have to happen. This is one that was created by what we permit. This was created by a violation of the Edmund Burke warning that all that evil needs to flourish is that good men do nothing. Well, I don't know if it was good men who did nothing. It was powerful men who did nothing. And the ones who were in power did nothing to condemn the virulent anti-Jewish hatred and diatribes that have gone on all over this country for 5-6 years. And some of them are Jewish themselves, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And it should stop now. And I think it will, because we have a leader who can move us in that direction. So to all of my Jewish friends who I feel a part of, we're with you. We're with you. You know why? Well, of course, we love you, and because of your great contribution to this country. But we understand that we're next. We always were next. I killed a lot of Orthodox Christians, too. So I am very aware of the fact that every time an Islamic extremist says, kill the Jews, death to Israel, boy, it's like reflex, death to America. I know who America is. And I'd be in it even if they didn't do that. But with that, I say to my fellow Americans, you're next. If they aren't on you already. So let's all of us, good people, stick together. Let's have good men do something instead of do nothing, and good women. So let's pray for the Jewish people as well as the people of Israel. Because these people were not killed because of the people of Israel. These people were killed because they were Jews. or they were killed because they came out of a Jewish place. I'm sure there were some Christians in there. And if he was. So pray especially for the people of Israel and for the Jewish people. They don't deserve this. Well, nobody deserves this. This is the most insane prejudice we have in the history of humanity. Nothing compares to this. The length of it, the breadth of it, and the irrationality and hatred and insanity of it. And it's like not only a blot against our morality and decency, even our intelligence, that we can't overcome it. And I thought we had. So pray for the people of Ukraine and for the people of Iran so they can be free. Pray for us here in America. Pray for our president because he's got so many things that he's doing. It's remarkable that the man can do as much as he does. And even where you disagree with him. Look, the greatest president so far, we'll see about President Trump. He's making a good run at it. Greatest president of my lifetime. He used to say, my 80% friend is not my 20% enemy. And he's a lot more than your 80% friend. So even if you have disagreements on this bill or whatever, just thank God that we got him, huh? Remember what it was like or what it could be like? So this weekend, say thank you to those in uniform or who have been in uniform. And say thank you to God. God bless America.
If you know, when I was a little boy, I remember we always sang these words. Oh, beautiful, far spacious sky, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain. Wait a minute. America, America. God, send me grace on thee. God, I love the fun kind of day. He cried like a. I don't you remember? Say me brother. From sea to shining sea, you know. I wish I had y'all to help me sing this thing here. Go ahead. America! Oh, yes, he did. You ought to love him for it, 'cause he cried like a... He told me what? Said he brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Love, that Jesus died down. I want to thank you, Lord. Let me thank you, Lord.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.